Okay, thanks, Holly. Yes, I'm project lead for the Innovation Pathways, which is Work Package 3. Just before dive into kind of the areas that we're going to focus on and research questions, I thought just to give a bit more context to, so yes, we can go to the next slide. Great, thank you. To, I guess, clean energy innovation. So obviously transition to clean energy systems requires innovation, but it will require quite radical innovation, and it's not just going to be technological, business models, behaviors, practices, changes to the way we use products, including new products and services, as the other work packages are grappling with. So how we introduce new technologies or new ways of doing things around energy efficiency or demand management. And so all of these innovations and their various ways of commercialization will have significant workplace change and also workforce change. And also to think that there are various pathways for commercializing and implementing innovation. So obviously the typical one that we all think often of when we think of innovation is new venture formation, so entrepreneurship, so startups. And startups in their various iterations can have various ownership structures. So, we've got community and cooperative, particularly in the energy space, the clean energy space. We're seeing a lot of diversity in terms of the ownership structures. And also the objectives. So many of these organizations have not-for-profit or other kind of community and organizational objectives, again, aside from traditional kind of venture objectives. So new venture entrepreneurship is one of the pathways for innovation to commercialize and be implemented. Incumbent entrepreneurship, so this is all of the existing businesses and organizations that operate in this space also play a key role in kind of shaping innovation pathways. And so there's various forms of entrepreneurship and corporate venturing activity that happens in that space. And increasingly, we're coming to talk about another pathway, innovation pathway, which is this public-private or mission-led innovations. Mission-led innovation, very popular topic in the European community, but also you could probably put Race 2030 quite squarely in there as a public-private mission-led innovation. So how are those collaborations and organizations also shaping innovation pathways? And then there's also a diversity of innovation support. So various forms of incubation. So there's support available to ventures. So in terms of getting them started up, giving them a physical infrastructure or spaces, support to entrepreneurs around training and development. There's financing of all these activities. And there's also support that looks at the wider transition management, so how we manage an entire process with all the various actors and their interactions, and situations like living labs are ways that transition management is being thought about and implemented. So that was just to give you a bit of a background to where we're kind of venturing into with this work package 3. Could I have the next slide, please, Holly? Great. So in terms of our focus, the focus of our work package is to really map these existing innovation pathways in Australia and assess how they are supporting clean energy transition. And then look to opportunities and options for strengthening these pathways. And in terms of, I guess, where we're kind of drawing boundaries about what we're really looking to the Race 2030 program of activity. So the 4 program areas that Greg spoke about earlier, and those 17 themes within those to kind of give us at least a dotted line boundary about where we might look in terms of opportunities and options. And we're also looking for priority areas for change, and also how some near-term projects for Race 2030. So in terms of research questions, it's again, how do these innovation pathways support energy transition in Australia? And what are the characteristics and dynamics of transition to clean energy in Australia? So what are the different actors? What are the roles? What are the challenges, the barriers, all those kind of characteristics? And then we're also looking internationally for experience. So what lessons and models are relevant from overseas comparators for specifically around increasing the impact and scale of clean energy transition in Australia. And very much thinking of this as an opportunity assessment. So looking at what are the opportunities available in Australia, and then also what, in the research roadmap, what research projects over the coming 9.5 years within RACE 2030 would contribute to increasing the impact and scale of clean energy transition. Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, just a little bit about our approach. So we're taking a systems innovation approach, and there's many kind of systems innovation systems approaches out there, but this is our partner with Climate Kick. They use this approach in their work around transformational innovation. So this is, again, the innovation. We're not just looking at incremental innovation, we're looking at step change or system level change. How do we activate that level of change? And in this process, it's about looking at the spaces in between as opposed to what's already there. So it's about identifying challenges and challenge owners and intervention points, but then also looking at the linkages between those, between successful innovation projects and how they link and what's the result of those linkages, and then also where are the gaps, what's missing from the system, and how through RACE 2030 we might look to fill those gaps, or also through the advocacy of our industry partners, how we might address that in kind of further policy settings. So again, we have three activities. So first up, we're doing this literature and practice scan. And I say practice scan because there's a lot of practice that's involved in supporting innovation, and so it's not always captured in the academic literature or even the grey literature about how that practice works. So we're definitely looking at both. And so part of that's around defining key terms and themes, thinking about how we could conceptualize innovation pathways and therefore map them, and then identifying those relevant stakeholders and comparators. That in activity 2, we'll be doing a series of interviews to identify kind of current bright spots or best practice or examples that we want to study further because they have useful information and insight about how clean energy innovation can be supported and accelerated. And then look to how and where these innovations are connected, if they are, as a way to try and highlight some of the potential leverage points for that system level change, and also where the gaps might be, and therefore where future work within RACE 2030 could cover. So activity 3, we are looking to have a position paper as well as a research roadmap. So the position paper is really, we're working with a number of industry partners, obviously colleagues at Monash, our other university research partners, but also Climate Kick, Energy Lab, Startup Bootcamp, Ultima Capital partners. These industry players have a role in terms of advocating for clean energy entrepreneurship more broadly. So we'd like to think about how we could contribute to thinking about that from this opportunity assessment, as well as the roadmap for research within 2030. So part of that process will be some workshops where we'll look to hopefully discuss and co-design with lots of the interested IRG members. So 2 workshops for that. As Holly mentioned, the first one will be in early March, and probably the second one will be in later April. if I could just go to the next slide, which I think is the last one. Thank you. So in terms of challenges, or I guess key areas where it would be good to have IRG thinking and input, it's one of the first steps that we're looking around is really clearly establishing definitions and key concepts around actors and clean energy transition, just so this allows us to kind of speedily be able to map those innovation pathways and to look at where, you know, what are good comparators and you know, how to make sense of all that information. Also, sensibly being able to map the current innovation pathways and be able to I guess, make sense of it in a way for mapping the opportunities. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, there's a lot of diversity in the space, lots of activity happening, lots of actors. So how do we sensibly map that and use that mapping to identify opportunities? Again, the relevant comparators and the basis and boundaries of comparison. Innovation pathways are tied quite closely into entrepreneurial culture, and this can vary greatly based on, you know, regional features or national features. So, you know, attitudes to risk, attitudes to failure. It's all tied up in kind of taxation systems and enterprise and education systems, policy systems within different countries. So again, working out ways where we can sensibly identify the relevant comparators and the boundaries of comparison. And going forward, also building meaningful pathways between the other work packages and being able to do that in a way, in a really short space of time that we have available in this opportunity assessment. So there, I think that's everything from me.